Okay, so yesterday we have started with the third unit, that is PLD architectures and applications. And yesterday we almost covered CPLD. And as I told you that this topic basically consists of these two things, that is basic architecture, specifications, applications, and sample devices for both CPLD and FPGA. So we discussed that the architecture of a generic CPLD looks either like this, that is left side blue color diagram, or right side almost same. And we clarified that both diagrams are correct. PLD block is also correct and PAL-like block is also correct. And he specified that CPLD is made up of multiple PLD blocks. And we told that each PLD block contains multiple macro cells, and each macro cell contains three elements: PAL-like logic, multiplexer, and D flip-flop. Okay, so we have indicated this. This is PAL-like logic, there is multiplexer, and there's D flip-flop. So I'll just like to make one correction. That this is a programmable mux actually. It's not a conventional mux, it's a programmable mux. Okay, the CPLD consists of macro cells as the building block. So multiple macro cells come together to make PLDs, and multiple PLDs come together to make a CPLD. Okay, and understand one thing here, that for example, if suppose the architecture shown here, if it belongs to XC9572, if suppose this is the architecture for XC9572, and that means this device contains 72 macro cells. Then these 72 macro cells will be uniformly divided amongst these four blocks. So you know 18 4 are 72. So this will contain cells. This will contain this will contain 18 macro cells. Okay, fine. So we almost finished with CPLD. Now we'll start with the FPGA today. Okay. Architecture of generic FPGA. So here also we'll insert two different diagrams. right? So both these architectures are identical. If you see in the left side architecture, um, we have logic blocks, and they are connected through a switch matrix. So we can say just like the CPLD is a combination of multiple PAL-like blocks or PLD blocks. Similarly, FPGA is a combination of multiple logic blocks. Many a time these logic blocks are also called as CLBs, or configurable logic blocks or logic elements. So Xilinx calls the basic building block of an arc of FPGA as a CLB, that is configurable logic block, while Intel or Altera, who is a competitor of Xilinx for manufacturing PLDs, they call the same blocks as logic elements. Similarly, in the right side diagram also, if we see, it's the same thing, and here we have written here CLBs and there is an IO block. So we can say that the right side diagram can be chosen over the left side, because in the left side diagram the IO blocks are not shown. So whether it is a CPLD or whether it is an FPGA, IO block is a compulsory element in the architecture. Okay, so we can write important points about this here. So FPGA is a combination of CLBs or logic blocks or logic elements. Okay, so here CLB stands for so this is the term used by Xilinx, while this is the term which is used by Intel. Ultimately, architectures remain the same. Okay, so fine. Now, just like we had made an equation here that CPLD is made up of multiple PLD blocks. Each PLD block contains multiple macro cells, and each macro cell contains PAL-like logic, MUX, and D flip-flop. Similarly, we can write something for an FPGA here. So FPGA is a combination of configurable logic blocks. Now we come to this. Okay. So we are not going to discuss about old day FPGAs, but modern day FPGAs. Okay. Well, just to mention, we can do that because in the lab we are using a old fashioned FPGA, while what is going on now is we are not using it. Okay. So logic density of an FPGA is defined in two different ways. By older and newer FPGAs. Okay. So just like logic density of CPLD is defined in terms of the total number of macro cells present in the device, like we said here, That XC9572 means it contains 72 macro cells. So 72 indicates the logic complexity of the CPLD. Similarly here, older FPGAs define it like this. Okay, so older FPGAs, newer FPGA. Okay, yeah. So for example, if I take a number XC3S 250E PQ208. Okay, so this is the FPGA which we are using in the lab. Okay, XC Spartan 3 250E package, number of pins and speed grade. We know this, right? So in this particular thing, this particular 250, it indicates the capacity. So how this 250 must be multiplied by 1000. So 250 means 250 multiplied by 1000, which is nothing but 2,50,000. Okay, so this 2,50,000 indicates that the amount of logic which can be implemented by 2,50,000 NAND gates can be implemented by this device. Okay, so when I write the number XC3S250E, and if this is an old FPGA, the 250 means 250 into 1000, that is 2,50,000. So 2,50,000 indicates the equivalent number of NAND gates. So it is 2,50,000 equivalent NAND gates. Okay. So when I say 2,50,000 equivalent NAND gates, it means the amount of logic which can be implemented by 2,50,000 two-input NAND gates can be implemented by the device. Similarly, if I write a number like this, if I write down XC3S 5000 PQ208, then here 5000 will indicate the capacity. So that means this device, it contains 5,000 equivalent to input NAND gates. That means it is also called as 5 million gate FPGA, another name for that. Okay, so 5 million, it's called as 5 million gate FPGA. Okay, so this was the way that the capacity of older FPGAs where it was defined, but the newer FPGAs, that is all Vertex series, define it in a different way. It's very interesting. So here it is defined, okay, in terms of total number of CLBs in the device. Now we have some mathematics. Okay, so I will flash to you the datasheet of Vertex 7 here. Okay, so this is the product table of Vertex 7 series, and we see here it is written, okay, CLB flip-flops. You see here CLB flip-flops, and here the device is there, XC7V. So XC stands for Xilinx Corporation, 7V stands for Vertex 7, XC7V 450T, XC7V 585T, and we see here that the column represents the devices. And if we see the densest FPGA, it contains XC7V 2000T. If you see this device particularly, it contains 24 lakhs 43,200 FPGAs. Sorry, CPLD. I'm very sorry. Yeah, that is the densest one which I am seeing. So XC7V 2000T contains 24 lakh 43,200 CLBs. I'll write this number here. Okay. So यहाँ पे लिखेंगे 24 lakhs 43,200. We'll write it again afterwards. Okay. So the mathematics is like this. 1 CLB is equal to 2 slices. Say equation number 1. 1 slice consists of 4 6 input LUTs, that is lookup tables, and it contains 8 D flip-flops. Okay, so I repeat that 1 CLB is equal to 2 slices. 1 slice is equal to 4 6 input LUTs and 8 D flip-flops, right? So you know that D flip-flop is D flip-flop. There is no need of any explanation. So what is the meaning of 6 input LUT? Okay, so 6 input LUT. So LUT stands for lookup table. The 6 input LUT is a programmable logic resource which can implement a 6 variable Boolean function. Okay. So similarly, 2 input LUT is a programmable logic resource which can implement a 2 variable Boolean function, that is 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1. 4 input LUT is a programmable logic resource which can implement a 4 variable Boolean function. Okay, that means 6 input LUT has the ability to implement 64 terms. Okay, it can implement 64 terms, that is from 6 zeros to 6 ones in the canonical form. Okay, very clear. So now, having the mathematics with us, we will calculate that Vertex 7's densest FPGA. You know, how many flip-flops and how many LUTs it contains. Okay, so now the FPGA XC7V 2000T. The datasheet says it contains 24 lakhs 43,200 CLBs. Okay, that means it will contain a double of that slices. So it will contain 48 lakhs 86,400 slices. That means here each slice contains 4 6 input LUTs. Okay, so it contains 4 6 input LUTs. So if I use a calculator, so 2443200 into 4. So 97 lakhs 72,800. 9772800. It contains 9772800. So many 6 input LUTs and into 8. So 2443200 into 8. So it contains 19545,600. Contains 19545,600. So many D flip-flops it contains. This is really huge. Okay, so this FPGA, it contains so many CLBs, so many slices, that is into 2, and it contains 97,72,806 input LUTs, and it contains so many D flip-flops. Okay, like that. Fine. Okay, so this diagram can be chosen over this thing because it is more detailed. Fine. And now this FPGA, as I said, there are two types: anti-fuse FPGAs and SRAM based. Okay, so modern day FPGAs are all SRAM based. Okay, now FPGA is a very advanced programmable device, and if you read the data sheet, you will come to know that what are the specifications it has. So I will again flash the product table, and we see here, just see here what it is written here. So it contains mixed mode clock managers. It contains DSP slicer. I told you that Vertex family was invented by Xilinx for performing DSP operations, that is digital signal processing. If we see here, it has ready-made DSP slices which are tailor-made for performing MAC, that is multiply and accumulate operations. So we see here the densest FPGA. It contains 2160 DSP slices. It has a support for PCI Express also, that is peripheral component interconnect. It has ADC inside. It has AES, that is 128-bit advanced encryption system also inside. It has HMAC blocks. It has 12.5 Gbps transceivers. You can understand what kind of a device it is. So it contains up to 28.05 gigabit receivers, right? So if we see here, the densest FPGA XC7V2000T, it contains 36 12.5 Gbps transceiver, which goes to show that nobody can beat an FPGA as far as IO ability is concerned. And if you see here, the packages which are available here, it goes from 484 pin. The densest is 1925. Yeah, 19, yes. So about 1929. So 1929 pin FPGA, and you see the size. The size is only 45 by 45 millimeters. So this whole chip is only about 4.5 45 into 45 millimeters square. So small. And see here, you must be asking how you found the calculation. It is written here clearly that a single Vertex 7 FPGA CLB comprised of 2 slices, each containing 4 6-input LUTs and 8 flip-flops. Okay, that means it contains 8 6-input LUTs and 16 flip-flops. So our mathematical calculation is correct. Okay, so among the features of an FPGA, we can actually write down that it contains DSP slices, they contain MAC blocks, multiply and accumulate, they contain block RAM, they contain DCM, that is digital clock managers, and they also contain GPPS transceivers. Okay, so these are the features of an FPGA. Okay, and the pin count of FPGAs is almost equal to 2000, and the packages they are available is called as FFG. Okay, FFG package. So again it is written here mostly. You see here FFG packages there. All the packages are FFG, only pin numbers are changing. So it is written here. The long form of FFG is written here. It is flip chip fine pitch BGA package, FFG. It stands for flip chip fine chip fine pitch BGA. This is the package in which FPGAs are available nowadays. Okay, yes, and among the sample devices, we have many. So from Intel, we have Stratix 10. You can in fact also go to intel.com. You'll find a lot of information here, and amongst Xilinx, we have Spartan, Vertex, Artix, and Kintex. So Spartan 2, Spartan 3, Spartan 6, and they have launched maybe Spartan 7 also now. Vertex 2, Vertex 4, Vertex 5, Vertex 7. Artix only 7, only 7. Okay. Okay. So if you want to give some sample numbers, you can give the lab number here. You can also have XC7V 2000T. This is a Spartan 3 device, and this is a Vertex 7 device. Okay. Yeah, so I have covered everything. So I'll not spend time on CPLD versus FPGA. I have notes. I will share them on the Teams. Okay. So here I'll be writing here, and I will share it. So two things are remaining from my side. I will complete the notes and I will share it with you. We have another 12 minutes, but I want to cover that topic of eliminating hazards. So I'll go back to the previous notes here. So we remember that we are started with hazards, and this is where we told that in this particular circuit, which does x1 and x2 odd with x2 bar and with x3, and after analysis we actually found out that it is suffering from a static 1 hazard. We see here in the last waveform y1 plus y2, it is not plus, I'm very sorry. In the last waveform y1 odd with y2, we see that for a short period of time the output, which should actually continuously remain 1, is becoming 0 and returning back. So this particular um, output 0 is because this particular NOT gate is actually having a propagation delay. So because of the propagation delay offered by the NOT gate to convert 0 to 1, so that during that propagation delay time TD, which I have indicated, for that much time the output is going to 0. This is called as a static 1 hazard. So if you want to remove this hazard, what we basically do is this, that we actually make the truth table for this. Okay, so here we know that y is x1 ANDed with x2 odd with x2 bar ANDed with x3. This is a 3 variable function. So what we do is that we just write down the inputs x1, x2, x2 bar, x3, x1 ANDed with x2, and we write down x2 bar, x3, right? So we have 0 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 0 0 1 1 0 0 1 1. We have 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1, and x2 bar will be 1 1 0 0 1 1 0 0. Now we start computing x1 x2. So x1 x2 will be 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 and 1. Okay, so 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 1. X2 and with x3, these two columns will come. So it is 0 1 0 0 0 1 0 0, and then next we have the function y. Okay, that is, it will be the ORing between these two. So we have 0 1 0 0 0 1 1 1. So if we make the truth table here, sorry, K map here, so the minterms are like this. So if we say minterm, then we have 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7. So we can say that the function y is equal to summation of minterms 1 5 6 and 7. So if you make a k-map here, then x1 x2 x3 0 1 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1, and here we have 1 5 6 and 7. So if we do the pairing, then we have this and we have this. So if we write this, it will again come out to be y is equal to, it will be x2 bar ANDed with x3 ORed with x1 x2, right? So now what do we do? If we see carefully here in the waveform, if we are able to remove, if I'm able to remove, if I can convert this 0 into 1, then my static 1 problem will be solved. I repeat that if during this duration, if somehow I can convert the 0 to 1, then my static 1 problem will be solved. So from this waveform we come to know that if I take an ANDing between the waveforms x1 and x3, I repeat, if I take an ANDing between these two waveforms, okay, if I take an ANDing between x1 and x3, then we see here that if x1 ANDed with x3 is always equal to 1. We see here x1 is 1 throughout and x3 is 1 throughout. That means x1 ANDed with x3 is equal to 1. If I can add this term x1 ANDed with x3 to the output y, then my 1 ORed with 1 will remain 1 and 0 ORed with 1 will become 1. Now this particular statement also can be derived from here. What I will do, I will add one redundant term here. Okay, so what I will do, that I will do repeated pairing. Second year your staff has taught you that if already ones are paired, you should not pair them again. But here we see that if I add this term, so if I combine these two, then what I get is this. So this particular thing, this particular combination becomes x1 x3. You see here between these two columns, this bit is not changing and it is x, so it is x1 x3. So even from the k-map, if I do a repeated overlapping, that means already all four ones are paired. Still, if I make a pairing between two adjacent ones, one more term will be added. So as such, this will increase the hardware. But by increasing the hardware, what is happening is I am solving the static one hazard problem. Okay, so here, so what I will do, I will indicate this instant as T1 T2. Okay, so I can write a note here that output Y remains 0 from T1 to T2 if we add the term x1 x3 to Y, then since x1 ANDed with x3 is equal to 1 always, the expression y, the value of expression y dash, which is equal to x1 x2 ORed with x2 bar x3 ORed with x1 x3 during T1 T2 will be y equal to x1 x2 ORed with x2 x3 ORed with x1 x3 will be equal to 0 odd with 1 equal to 1. Okay, thus the problem of static 1 hazard has been solved. Thus the problem of static 1 hazard has been eliminated by adding a redundant term. Okay, it's like that. So the hazard free circuit would be to add one more gate here. Okay, yes. So that's all from my side. So we have already covered this topic now. This thing, elimination of hazards is also complete now. Okay.